if it's actually complete. I can take questions about it. We just need to refer to the proposal, but it's noted, it's very comprehensive. It's very similar to the proposal that we received from Timmons to look at the business park here in the county. They're that comprehensive.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Carter?
Well, are we voting on this now or just?
It's a feasibility study, yeah.
The thing that I don't understand is, I want to invest in agriculture in the county, but why would we invest in Amherst? Wouldn't that create barriers to do what we want to do? It seems to me we have an agricultural department at the high school. Why don't we feed the money into that? And to be perfectly honest, from my experience in living here, I've had difficulty dealing with Amherst County. I'm not sure that being a larger county than we are, we have a lot of input into what happened in this facility. I have real questions about it.
Well, one thing I'll address is the thought that this facility is proposed to take place of anything that either county is doing in their existing CTE programs at the high schools. The idea behind the facility, that's one portion, is helping high school CTE. But this would range from younger kids all the way to adults. And the idea is for this facility to be something that could host career education for adults that want to change careers and get their CDL license or learn how to do welding or things that aren't high school related classes. Almost envision it as a GED program for the CTE side. It's giving people an opportunity to learn these different trades, whether it's how to install solar, or how to install fiber. Also the farming community, not just the student.
When the guy was here giving his presentation, he didn't emphasize any of that stuff.
Well, I can't speak to why he spoke about what he did, but I've been involved in the process from the beginning, and I know what the intent is. I also am familiar with the facility in Chapman, which is kind of the basis of what they're starting with, is a place where not just, don't think of ag as high school FFA, think of it as the community, and where there could be a facility for ag activities, whether it's a veterinarian coming on site and offering services for local farmers to come in and take advantage of this one vet on site. It's a lot more to it than just expanding on the FFA program.
If those things are a necessity, why don't we do them ourselves?
So there's
under lower,
so
less,
well, the struggle that we run into, and it's a great question you ask, is Nelson County doesn't have the economies of scale. We don't have a big enough population. In other words, so for example, if we're going to do a welding class or a solar class, one of the issues you run into is, sometimes don't have enough kids to fill the class to justify an instructor coming from out of town to come in. And so So what you have to do is, with this partnership, it will allow us to bring both demographics from Amherst and Nelson so that we can offer more programs that might not necessarily, there might be a couple programs in there that we can't host just in Nelson, but if we team up with Amherst, we'll be able to have enough people that would participate.
Where do kids go? I remember we had a lot of welders that worked on the pipe industry. Where do they go to learn welding today? Where do those people
So
go?
if you're a Nelson County kid, let's just say you live in Howardsville, your closest schools, other than from the high school, but if you want to further that, is Central Virginia Community College, all the way on Lynchburg, K-Tech, I can't remember what's the one over in Alta Vista. It'll come to me in a bit. And PVCC. So what this would do is it would eliminate a very substantial drive, which is a big barrier for a lot of low-income families.
Where is PVCC located?
You know where PVCC is located. That's over on right off of 29. You can see it right near the prison.
Yeah.
64, or 20, excuse me.
That's closer to Howardsville than Amherst. Howardsville is closer to that than
Yeah, but,
Amherst.
but the thing is, but not as not Tyro, not Matthews Mill, not any of those. I mean, this is and not only just that, this is helping the local farmer potentially have a market closer to them, and they don't have to go to the other side of the world with their cattle. I mean, it's so much more. And Skip, this is just a feasibility study.
I
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
that you're saying that, and I don't understand it enough to know the answer. You know, I listen to what you're saying. I just have real doubts, and
So, do you think we should be able to offer more career and technical education to our kids? I mean, I think we do. And the struggles that I've run into when I bring up the question, and I have worked very hard in our high school to try to bring more programs, is we don't have enough kids to make a program happen.
you know, it's funny as a teacher, you sort of like the baseball movie. If you do it, they'll come. And if you're good at what you're doing, they came. The students came, no matter what you offered them. And I think we should offer those things. We have to pay for those things to be in the local high school. You know, and then if we get the right person to do it.
So instructors
come.
won't come
What?
from these programs like the community college unless you have a certain
I
number of
just
people.
don't understand why we want to do it in Amherst.
That's just where we can't move the land. And the land in question just happens to be across the river in Amherst County. If there was a suitable, similar piece of property in Nelson County, we would be looking to do this facility.
If there
in
was
Nelson.
little, I can't agree that Amherst would agree to it.
I know they've already
said
said they
that.
would agree.
said
If there
that
was
100 times.
if the location was on the Nelson side, that's not the concern. But here's something that I want to make sure we don't get hung up on, because it seems like the conversation is centering around students and CTE, and that might make up about 20 to 25% of the purpose of this facility. That's a small percentage of what this facility is about. We're getting honed in on, we're getting caught up in the weeds. We need to look at the other aspects of what this facility could be, which is what this study, okay, a small investment on our part that's already been approved in Amherst, and the number of man hours that have gone to get us to this point, I feel we would be letting down the entire potential if we don't approve the feasibility study, which is what we're talking about today. But it would give us the vision of other opportunities. One little thing, it could be an event space. It has beautiful views. The sunset from this piece of property is amazing. It could be a wedding venue. It could be a place where they could have, if there's a riding rink, it could be barrel racing. It could be motocross like they do in Chapman. It could be a farmer's market, community farmer's market. The other thing about going in with Amherst is it gives us the potential to exponentially expand on the funding opportunities, where you have crossover regions between Amherst and Nelson coming together, and the funding resources would be more than just two coming together and doubling. It could be larger than that because of the funding opportunity. So again, I think we're getting hung up on the K through 12 education or the 9 through 12 CTE kids. That is a very small portion of what this facility could do for our community. In fact, I don't know that the Chatham facility even uses it.
Right.
I don't think they even use it for school age stuff. I think it's all the other sources. We're just trying to add that level as an opportunity to expand. But that's not what that's not the focus of their facility.
Do you have information about the Chatham facility?
Yes, and we've been, yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's Old Dominion Ag Complex, .com or something like that is their website.
Yeah.
That explains what they do. But right now, I think the question you're looking to answer right now is, do we want to participate in this facility with Amherst County? And I think that question is about 60 to 180 days down the road from now. Today, what we're talking about is, do we want to proceed with this feasibility study to see if we want to make that decision 180 days from now or 90 days from now? We're just trying to decide, do we want to join Amherst, who has already approved the study, and look into this possibility and what it could do for both counties?
Mr. Parr, I agree with you with your assessment about education. I think that is that's something that really the Chatham facility doesn't even mention.
No.
But what is the foundation of the Chatham facility are offices that are housed there, where there are people there every day. There's the Farm Bureau, there's the Farm Service Agency of the USDA, there's Soil and Water Conservation District, there's the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, the Cooperative Extension Service, and Farm Credit. All of those are housed there. These are all businesses that provide some financial foundation for this. These are things that I don't have any interest in providing a facility in Amherst to establish those things.
Now,
To have an economic foundation for something like this means that you have to have something that pays the bills month after month after month after month. Can education do that? Probably not. Can events do that? Probably not. Can rentals do that? Probably not. If the question is, should we be investing $30,000 into something that would be located in Amherst County, I'm not in favor of it. Beyond that, I just do not see that. Well, if Amherst was to pay for the feasibility study itself, since it would be the main beneficiary of this,
what do
I
you mean
certainly
main
would-
beneficiary?
because it's located in Amherst County.
So what would just the geographic location is their beneficiary?
And whatever goes on there is under Amherst County, yes.
I mean, we
I do
benefit
see
from
that.
so many things outside of our county. UVA Hospital, many of our residents work there.
I'm not asking that you agree with me. I'm just
I
saying
mean-
that's how it is. If it's located in Amherst County, that's where it is.
So you would never, ever, in your entire term as a supervisor in Nelson County, ever look at doing anything in joint with another county?
Mr. Parr, that's a different question.
No, it's
For a
not.
different
I mean,
time.
You just answered it. But a
No.
couple of things on the bills you talk about, all right, I hope you all understand that this facility is not going to be owned and operated and funded by Nelson County and by Amherst County. This is going to be a separate organization that will be responsible. Yes, there will be seed money that the two counties will help get it up and running, but this organization is going to be paying their bills and they'll be taking care of the expenses when it's established. Number two, there are already two, I can't give you names, but there are already two large retail businesses looking to locate in this facility if it is realized. And number three, one thing we haven't talked about, and I think it's a question that a lot of people are thinking, is Amherst is going to benefit from the tax revenue. And it has already been set up that if this were to go through, either they would refund, all taxes would funnel back into the organization, the committee running the facility, or any revenue would be shared 50-50 between Amherst and Nelson.
This is one of the things that makes me suspicious. Two large private entities are going to be, and we're talking $30,000, and you're saying this is a pittance. Well, they certainly could afford $30,000 in the feasibility study. I don't see why I can see them coming to us after the fact and saying, look, this is what we have done. We've done all this work. We have this thing here. Would you like to be involved? Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll see what you have. But they haven't done that. I don't quite understand their motives. And like I said before, the fact that it is in Amherst County makes me less enthusiastic about it.
Mr. Chairman, I suggest that we postpone this discussion to next month or a later meeting.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Anyone want to make a motion on this? Okay, hearing none.
Table it.
On to reports. Ms. Carter.
I handed out my report earlier, copy. Sort of late to the show on that. Status of the board on the coronavirus, as of yesterday, the county had 5 new cases of the virus. Department of Health is tracking this pretty much on a daily basis. From September 2nd to the 13th, the county had its highest count on the 16th, of 16 on September 2nd, and the lowest count of 1 on September 4th. The average daily count over that period is 7.5 cases per day. Since the board's meeting, sorry, I have a typo there, in August 10th, the total number of COVID cases has increased to 1,131 from 903, or 228 new reported cases. Additionally, 48 persons have been hospitalized, an increase of 7 from August 10th. There have been 14 deaths related to the virus, which is an increase of 1 from August 10th. The Department of Health and CDC guidance for areas of high or substantial transmission in the county is a locality of high transmission, which is the worst level for the VDH and CDC guidelines, is to wear a mask indoors in public settings. And for individuals who are not vaccinated, the health department CDC guidance is to wear a mask and practice social distancing in all indoor settings and in outdoor crowded settings. As we reported last month, we've reverted to more of an honorary system where we aren't asking people when they come to the courthouse or other county facilities, we're requiring them to wear a mask. It's more or less an honorary system. And we presented this question to the board last time, and we haven't really taken any action about it since. And lastly, on this subject, the governor has announced on August 5th a mandate for all state employees to be vaccinated. And one thing that President Biden has just recently done last week was issue an executive directive order that's going to mandate that all employers over 100 also mandate their employees be vaccinated, or as with Governor Northam's executive order, test each week if they refuse to be vaccinated. So we're monitoring that, because what we've seen in some of the communications or information about this is it pertains to businesses, and we're not sure the county's going to be identified as a business yet. So, but it could be coming where we have over 100 FTE employees, could be applicable to the county. And one question I'd ask the board about related to this is, we haven't had an uptick really with county employees yet being impacted with the virus or having to quarantine because they've been in close contact with someone who's had the virus. But we've had at least one employee who's been out recently with the virus, and the question's been presented to me about covering their expense instead of requiring them to take vacation or sick leave. There's a difference in categorization of employees as to how much vacation or sick leave you accrue. For example, hybrid employees will receive like 96 hours of sick leave every year. If they don't use it, it's forfeited and they get 96 hours. the next fiscal year. Employees in my, for example, using me as an example, I accrue a day of sick leave per month and can carry that over from year to year. So it's the question I'd ask you to consider today, which I think I could probably decide this administratively, but I'd like the board's input, of course, is just making this only applicable to the virus. Would the board be amenable to, if we just don't charge people vacation or sick leave, their salaries are already budgeted, and if they're impacted by the virus, they just, able to recuperate, come back to work without having to use either vacation or sick leave. I think it would be helpful, certainly, and it would only apply to individuals that have an issue related to the virus, not one of the things I've tossed out in our internal discussion. If you get the flu and you're out for 2 weeks, you're going to request time off, not to have to use your sick leave for that. And so the consideration is only pertaining to the COVID-19 virus. So I asked you to think about that while I'm moving through my report. The American Rescue Plan, as was just mentioned earlier, we are working through that. We have several ideas for possible uses of the funds. We know Candy participated in a seminar or a Zoom meeting today about it, and we're pretty confident we could use it to purchase ambulances, for example, the Motorola radios that were deferred today. We could also use it to acquire property for the recreation project if it meets certain census tract criteria. So there's some options that we're definitely looking at. And something that's come up recently, which is not in my report, but I'll add it here because it also could pertain to use of the American Rescue Plan. We're working with the Service Authority. They recently accepted sealed bids on their Wintergreen project, which is basically will replace their existing wastewater treatment plant and also do a significant rework in their wastewater collection system. We worked with them last week and we revised their shortfall. So we've sent communications to our federal representatives and our state representatives asking for their support to secure either federal or state funding to address what is, from our estimates, about a $3,750,000 shortfall. We don't know where that's going to lead to yet. I spoke to Senator Deed's office, his main assistant this afternoon, and they're going to work this. Delegate Moley called me yesterday and said he would support Senator Deed's efforts. So they're going to see what they can do. There's no guarantees. Haven't heard back from any of our federal reps yet, but hopefully we will. So we're trying to help the Service Authority tackle this, but as I'm trying to say, this ARP funds could also be used to assist them with the shortfall. And the board would have to make the decision. The Boundary River wastewater system, the Simcoe pump station we've been working on for a while. We had a question with one of the there's two primary pumps. They work sort of in tandem. We've had an issue with one of those pumps not functioning properly, and we got a cost proposal from the company that's just refurbished the pump station to replace one of those pumps, but we investigated it further, and Paul Truslow and the representative for the pump manufacturer who helped us when the pump station was installed initially, he came down from Richmond, looked at it with Paul on Monday, and what they found was there's a dial for a valve that's associated with the pump, check valve, and it says open or closed position. Well, those were reversed on the dial, and the valve was actually in the closed position. When they realized that, they opened it up with a wheel and tested the pump working according to plan. So the estimate to replace that pump was $46,000. So hopefully, I think we're going to pay Matt Lynchell, who's the manufacturer's rep, and has helped us throughout issues with Piney River. I think we're going to pay him about $890 for his time. So good fortune there, if I may say. Comprehensive plan, a draft has been circulated to the planning commission. The planning staff have gotten and received input from the commissioners. They're incorporating that into the request for proposals. And we're going to send that updated document to the board for your comments and subject to any input from the board. We will incorporate your comments. If we don't get any in our plan, subject to discussion of this, is to just go ahead and issue the RFP to get sort of the show on the road, if we may put it that way. So we're pretty well positioned, but we want the board to see the RFP too. Moving on to our other initiatives, we had a work session last Friday morning with architectural partners and Timmons on both the recreation and business park projects. Some of this, the board's going to see this in the next 4 or so weeks, possibly sooner. So some of the information is sort of confidential. We don't want to release it to the public yet because of the interest in acquiring property. But I think from our perspective, Candy, Grace, several others were on the meeting, and both projects are moving along very well. The recreation project, we should be submitting some more specific information to the board on that, probably within the next couple of weeks. Our next meeting is planned for 2 more weeks, 2 Fridays from last Friday. And then with the business park, we've seen outlines of what the property could be developed at different levels. So it's very encouraging, if I may put it that way. And I hate to be sort of not really informative, but I think this information is forthcoming, cost information, how the sites could be developed, the elements of the recreation facility at a large scale and a reduced scale. It's all moving forward, and both consultants said they thought we would be in a position to bring everything to the board, either an open or closed session in about 4 to 6 weeks. So it's moving along really well. The Ag Center, the board discussed that earlier. The McGinnis Building Assessment, Architectural Partners, in conjunction with Hurt and Profit, has pretty much completed that assessment. And I included that in my report, which may have just gotten it today if I hadn't sent it by email. But, the building basically has a lot of issues, structural, internal issues, external issues. The Hurt and Profit reports its issues they identified could cost in the vicinity of $140,000. Architectural Partners said add another $250,000 to that to get it to pretty well restored. But Mark Smith from Architectural Partners said this guesstimated the cost would be about $500,000 to bring that building into no issues whatsoever. So sort of the good news is you don't really have to do anything at this point if there's consideration sometime in the near future of doing something else facility-wise. But the building is sinking, there's structural issues, there's issues with the roof, there's issues with insulation, there's just a lot of concerns with that building. It's not going to fall in or anything, it's just getting it to where it should be. So I'll note that to the board. You can look at the report and we'll bring it back up at, when you're ready to discuss it. No actions necessary today, it's just getting the report and sort of quick overview about it to the board. Then lastly, this isn't in my report, but I sent a memo to the board previously about overtime. So as I noted in that memo, the General Assembly in their special session in August reversed course and restored the ability to utilize compensatory time and or to pay for overtime. So the board in August, as you may recall, approved funding for overtime for all the applicable county departments on an annual, an estimated annualized basis, and just over $21,000 is appropriate for the sheriff. The question for the sheriff was, he wanted to use a 160-hour work period over 28 days versus the state and federal provisions of 171 hours. Well, I think he's acquiesced to 171 hours. And so sort of sum it up for our offices and I think primarily county staff, we're good with paying overtime now throughout the year, subject to there being a funding shortfall. What's critical about that is primarily with dispatch, where the use of compensatory time is just a negative for them, because what happens, which is very similar with the sheriff's department personnel, is this employee gets comp time, they take that time off, and then another employee has to work for them, and then they accrue comp time. So it's just sort of a vicious cycle, which is the same with the sheriff's department. So with respect to the sheriff's department, the funding that the board appropriated in August will carry them through probably September. And they're continuing to accrue vacancy savings. So it could be that if the board's amenable to this, which is a question for you all to speak to, is just to, we're developing or identifying the total cost to pay for the current amount of accrued comp time and holiday pay and overtime. So we have that total cost. Because we sort of like, we would like to just wipe that off the books and start fresh and move forward with paying the deputies, the law enforcement personnel for their overtime, their holiday pay, and the vacation pay sort of absorbed when they're off. But that will help them immensely, significantly with, they, like a lot of localities are experiencing, they lose people, they gain people, but they're constantly in flux with recruiting people. And the vicious cycle I refer to definitely pertains to them, where if they use compensatory time to pay for holiday time and overtime, people either can't use it, or the people that do, the person who takes their place accrues it, and it just starts all over again. So I don't know what the board's position is on that. You can take questions, but I think we can not have a budgetary issue or concern if we sort of reverse course and sort of monitor and manage this so that the deputies are compensated without really impact until they're fully, and they have all their employees in place. There's no vacancy savings. At that point, you might have to consider appropriating funds to pay vacation, holiday, and compensatory time, or get that off the books. But we can probably carry it for a significant period of time. They've just hired 2 people, but they're still down 4. So for July, they saved just over $21,000. For August, they saved $21,000. And for September, if you don't hire someone, 4 more people by the end of the month, it's probably going to be 15 or 16,000 more that we could reallocate to compensate them for any overtime, holiday pay, etc. And talking to Candy staff this morning, the overtime for July and August was just 3 hours. So maybe I should just take comments or questions from the board about that. But the sheriff is amenable to the 171 schedule. It's just a question of paying overtime or reverting back to compensatory time. Because, so I would put in that report, the board, when someone leaves that office, any constitutional office, you are not required to pay them for accrued compensatory time, accrued vacation leave, etc. It's up to the officer. Of course, it's a burden for the officer if that happens. You probably don't have to decide today, but it is something that is, I think, very important to Sheriff Hill, would be very important to his staff, probably be very helpful to the county as far as, not having this continued issue time on the books and just continuing to grow that time on the books. When you could have the ability to pay the officers, that can probably make them happier and help to sort of mitigate this cycle of compensatory time. It just keeps adding up. I don't think it's that great of an issue for our staff. Dispatch, yes, but it's just similar to the sheriff's. Sorry, long story.
On top of that, in response to the bonuses from the state,
Yeah, I failed to mention that. We're gonna bring that back next month for the board. You don't have to, it's not mandated to be paid till the end of October. The consideration there is the funding the General Assembly approved is only for compensation board supported positions, and we have several positions that are locally funded only. So back to the vacancy savings, we can also probably use the vacancy savings to pay for the non-comp board personnel. $3,000 is the bonus the General Assembly approved. So I don't remember the number of local positions, it's 6 or 8, so it'd be about 24,000. There's at least two part-time positions. Our thought is to pay them half of that, $1,500. And in our internal discussions, it's like, okay, we're gonna get the numbers and bring it back to the board and how we would address just paying for those additional costs. If the board's amenable to provide the same benefit for all law enforcement personnel. Questions? Sorry. So I guess if I may, the two questions I have for the board is any input on the, offsetting any COVID-19 absences, just letting those things go. And then secondly, is the board amenable to this recommendation of using, for the time being, vacancy savings, which we will report back
Yes.
in the budget amendment every month?
yeah, I'm fine with that. As Sheriff Hill indicated, if that is okay.
He replied to me this morning when I answered his questions about this.
Yeah.
And said he was thrilled and delighted.
All right, well, let's go with that. I think that's appropriate. As it relates to the,
I agree.
as it pertains to the COVID, at this point, we got to start moving on as a society.
I think that, an illness is an illness. So I don't see why there should be any difference.
And we've debated it.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why it should. And it's always unfortunate when you're sick.
Mhm.
It always sucks.
So those are the consensuses.
Oh,
Go
there you
ahead.
go, your turn.
I don't think all illnesses are the same. I mean, point in fact, flu's been around a long time, but I've never seen you wearing a mask. So this is different, and we can't treat it the same. I'm in shock that I just heard those words spoken out loud, especially considering the stores. I don't understand. But I think we need to have some accommodation for that. There's some stigma. And people may tend to not be forthcoming with their illness because of that stigma. I've never thought twice about telling anybody I had the flu. But and I did what I was supposed to do, and I was a little embarrassed and disappointed when I got COVID. But there are people out there that are gonna still, people's mentality changed when the rules changed on when you had COVID or you had the symptoms and you stayed home versus when they didn't have to use their PTO versus when they do.
Right.
And I think there is a mentality that I applaud you all for looking into this and considering it, because I think there is a difference.
If I may, just a specific example. particularly related to what are called the hybrid VSR employees who they are, for our policy, they accrue 96 hours of sick leave each year, use it or lose it, and not use it for vacation, of course, but, we just had one individual who is a hybrid employee for VSR purpose and for that sick leave purpose who has been out for just over a week and a half. And they asked the question, do I have to take sick leave for that? Because they're gonna exhaust that 96 hours, or pretty close to it. For people like me who I don't know, probably 7 months of sick leave accrued, I'm not really concerned about it, but, and I can't speak to how many hybrid employees we have, but, every time we get a new employee who has no prior experience, they're gonna be in that hybrid group. So it's not exactly the same for all of us.
Yes.
I just wanted to add that the hybrid employees, that even though they only get the 96-hour lump sum sick leave at the beginning of each leave year, they have access to short and long-term disability.
Yeah.
Right.
that's
Whereas employees like Steve and I do not.
Right, right.
So
You're exempt.
they do have that.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
I didn't intentionally felt it,
That's, yeah.
You just reminded me, I had 200 days of sick leave. When I retired, I got $10 per day.
Nice.
I mean,
What do you want us to do?
well, if you don't want to decide, that's fine. We'll, just
I mean,
address
Yeah.
it.
You
And if it's limited to just COVID-related illnesses, the budget is going to pay for that person's salary anyway, and the board's amenable to that.
Yeah.
I certainly recommend doing that, but nothing else.
Yeah, just keep it to COVID.
I certainly understand what you said. We've said that. I've said that right out of the bat when it was first presented to me. No, they got to use their sick time.
I mean, but this has got to end. I mean, as we transition and we realize that it's going to be this and the flu
And
together.
then the other question is, do we want to look at it vaccinated versus unvaccinated? I mean, and how we respond to that.
Right,
You know,
we discussed that too.
the unvaccinated person, and their right to do so, has made a choice. And the vaccinated person has made a different choice. Should we look at those two situations the same or not?
Yeah, we discussed that, and I think, I'm not sure it's equitable. I just thought one size fits all, because it's hard to differentiate, really.
I agree, one size fits all, which is probably a little different from what you meant, but.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, but I think, an illness is an illness, and to treat it any differently is not a good idea.
No, I understand. Yeah, you don't know how many times that we discussed the pros and cons of that, asking the board to consider. Well, if you don't want to decide, that's fine, we'll
Well,
just deal with it.
I mean, the motion that you're hypothetically looking for and are suggesting is just to treat COVID like COVID and not flu like COVID.
I'll remind the board, when we had the CARES Act funding, and I was the beneficiary of this,
Sure.
the board agreed to use the CARES Act funding to offset any absences related to COVID. I didn't have to use any sick leave for that. Others didn't. But that money's been exhausted, so you could use probably this ARP funding for it, but it's really not necessary. I guess it's the question of use your sick leave or your vacation leave, or for COVID only, if you don't have to.
I mean, use your sick leave if you got the flu,
I mean, hopefully we won't have that many new cases, but with this Delta variant, it's very hard to know.
Right.
Or with this virus overall.
It'll be echo, it'll be whatever's after that, I just assume that it, as Steve suggested.
Yeah, if you want to think about it, it's not like we can't bring it back. I mean, I'm not trying to defer it, but I certainly don't want to just drop something on the board and ask you to decide immediately if you're not ready to do so.
I'm certainly not ready to vote in favor of the proposal.
Yeah, any questions on anything else?
Yeah, when will you know about, when will they present their plans about the rec areas and the business park and all that?
We're going to meet again, 2 Fridays. I would suggest maybe 1 or 2 board members come to that meeting, so you can get more direct insight into the project, because it will be presented to the board. From our meeting this past Friday, the next 4 to 6 weeks is with both consulting firms who they thought could be their timeline, or is their timeline. We're just sensitive to showing you the information we've seen, because a lot of it pertains to the acquisition of real estate, and we just don't want to publicly present that at this point.
When is that meeting?
Next Friday, 2 Fridays is what we anticipate at 10 a.m. So I think the last Friday of the month. And it's probably going to be by Zoom.
Looks like October 1st.
That's October 1st.
October 1st.
Then the 24th.
Yeah, the 24th.
24th?
Yeah, the 24th.
What time?
Right now, we're thinking 10 a.m.
Okay.
We'll report back.
Okay.
We could have I just don't know if we have a meeting. I'm not sure if you could just go into public closed session over all the things that would be discussed. It would be better if just 2 of you came to sort of see it and give me comments about it. But I think you're going to be very impressed. And then the challenge after that is how to pay for the thing. But we'll come up with a plan, but you'll have to endorse it, of course.
I'll be happy to be on that call.
Yeah, I'd like to come too.
And of course, if you want to come over, I can brief you and show you.
I mean, we could come to you individually.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever works, but at the meeting, we can only have 2.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're waiting for a document from Timmons that, where the business park will be very inviting, I think. It's
Great.
preliminary, but I don't know, I think all the staff are pretty excited about it, but yeah, all to be determined, of course.
Very good.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments for Steve?
Thank you,
Steve. Okay. Reports? Mr. Barr?
I have nothing.
Mr. Ruff?
I have been living the TJPDC life for the last 2 weeks, just about every day.
Thank you.
And
We're
it's
grateful.
exciting.
We're grateful.
We'll be done we'll have decisions will have been made soon. So,
I want to talk about the social service thing related to COVID and the schools. I spent some time at the schools, and I underestimated the residual effects of COVID on our society. Social service